Observation 1. Inherency. Immigration is the topic of economic engagement towards Mexico. Subpoint A. The North American Free Trade Agreement makes immigration a topic of engagement toward Mexico. From Blues to 1997. NAFTA created a number of institutional arrangements that have breathed new life into established consultation groups. Both sides of the joint border liaison mechanism have taken steps to reduce smuggling of immigrants. The bilateral engagement with Mexico on migration issues that began before NAFTA has increased since its passage. Subpoint B. The treatment of Mexican nationals inside the United States is a matter of intense interest to the government of Mexico. Booth, 2012. Nieto, who takes office Saturday, and his team said they are ready to help the Obama administration and the U.S. Congress implement a guest worker program to regulate the flow of Mexican labor to the United States, where an estimated 6 million Mexicans live illegally. Observation 2. Harms. Current U.S. immigration policy is overbalanced to border enforcement. Subpoint A. Federal immigration legislation is overbalanced toward border enforcement. Mann, 2012. In succeeding years, new bills were introduced seeking comprehensive immigration reform, but each year the path of legalization became more onerous. Excluding more of it, the currently undocumented and ever harsh enforcement components were included as preconditions for legalization plans. Each year since then, billions of dollars more have been appropriated for both border enforcement as well as internal enforcement. ICE raids on homes and businesses, traffic stops, arrests, detentions, and removals of hundreds of thousands of immigrants based on order removal orders, lack of a path to legalization, or criminal convictions. Congress now provides funding for the Department of Homeland Security to arrest, detain, and deport about 400,000 insufficiently documented non-citizens each year. Subpoint B. State immigration restrictions are overbalanced toward border enforcement. Mann, 2012. Finally, the enforcement war has spawned draconian anti-immigrant laws in many states, with the Arizona Supporter Law Enforcement and Safe Neighborhoods Act, the model for laws in Alabama, Georgia, Indiana, and other states. Therefore, we as the affirmative team present the following plan. The United States federal government will substantially increase its economic engagement towards Mexico by adopting a market-based guest worker program as proposed by the Hamilton Project and Gianova Perry, professor of economics at the University of California at Davis. The plan would replace the existing current H-1B, H-2A, and H-2B visa programs with a quarterly auction of temporary permits, offering employers the opportunity to bid for the services of guest workers. Guest workers and their immediate families would be ensured free legal movement across the U.S.-Mexican border. Our plan has the following advantages. Advantage 1. A responsible guest worker program benefits Mexican immigrants. Subpoint A. Current immigration policy is significantly harmful. Subpoint 1. Thousands of immigrants die because of the enforcement-first immigration policy. Kincast, 2010. Tragically, since 1998, nearly 5,000 migrants have perished in the desert trying to enter the United States. This trend showed known signs of decreasing. Border deaths in 2009 reached their highest level in 3 years. Despite the efforts of Border Patrol teams that have rescued thousands of desert crossers, judging by these measures, enforcement first has largely failed to end illegal immigration on its own. Subpoint 2. Deportation proceedings violate equal protection under the law. Mosley, 2010. As Americans, we profess to be a nation of equal justice under law. Our present immigration system is unjust. Because we don't have the means to deport all undocumented workers, it means that immigration officials cannot help but enforce the law arbitrarily, those sporadic raids and sweeps that catch some undocumented workers in the net and miss others. This is more than unfair. Subpoint 3. Absence of legal status results in abusive employer behavior. Hickey, 2013. For us at the Workers' Rights Center, progress is overdue and welcome. In our 10 years of assisting low-income, mostly immigrant workers, we have seen the negative consequences of Congress's failure to address the flaws in our immigration system. We have assisted thousands of workers who have had their wages stolen, endured dangerous and unhealthy conditions, been sexually harassed, or been treated as less than human, all because of their status. If immigration laws are changed, these workers' lives would improve dramatically, and it would have a positive effect on the country. Subpoint 4. The North American Free Trade Agreement, or NAFTA, moves Mexican jobs to the United States, yet it does not allow Mexican laborers to follow those jobs across the border. Gordon, 2010. Foreign capital flowed quickly into Mexico after NAFTA. In agriculture, a mainstay of the Mexican economy, the result was the replacement of small-scale farmers with agribusiness conglomerates. A number of the farmers and farm workers displaced as a result of this shift migrated directly to the United States. Others went to Mexican cities and to the growing export production sector in search of work. When the Mexican economy was unable to produce enough good jobs to absorb these workers, many of them too continued northwards into the United States. Subpoint 5. NAFTA creates an unethical imbalance between powerful corruptions and powerless workers. Hing, 2010. Our current border policy is not an ethical one. It fails to respect the dignity of workers and families who cross the border. It fails to recognize how NAFTA and other global phenomena have helped to exacerbate the economic imbalance between the United States and Mexico. It fails to seriously consider the implication of U.S. trade and agricultural subsidies on developing nations and future migration flows. Yes, failed leadership in Mexico has been a problem, but the United States has helped to set the stage for many of those failures. the militarization of the border and stepped-up emphasis on raids in residential neighborhoods as well as workplaces are difficult to justify in that light. Subpoint B. A responsible guest worker program offers humane treatment of immigrants. Subpoint 1. A responsible guest worker program reduces the death associated with illegal border crossing. Jimenez, 2012. This liberalization of borders policy is a solution to the abuse of migrants because it would send a message to migrants that they have equal dignity with all people, instead of classifying them as unwanted and dehumanized alien. As a result, this would minimize the current political vulnerability of non-citizens that exists today, as well as the facilitation of deaths and exploitation of desperate undocumented immigrants. These vulnerable migrants will feel protected by both the United States and Mexico and will no longer be afraid to report crimes that occur in transit to the United States because they will not fear deportation or exclusion. This will lead to the capture of human traffickers and smugglers and an elimination of that market. Subpoint 2. The Perry Plan will provide income security for immigrants. Perry, 2013. Most of the undocumented are already working, probably with legal status that they will be able to obtain somewhat higher wages, 5% to 10% higher, most studies say, and consume and spend more. The fees and back taxes paid to achieve legal status also will be a welcome source of revenue for the government. The really significant payoff will be when newly legal immigrants are more willing to invest in training and to move between employers as they participate fully in the economy and feel more certain about their future. The younger among them will be more likely to pursue an education. These investments will increase their human capital, wages, productivity, and tax-paying ability, with positive effects on the economy. Advantage 2. A responsible guest worker program that benefits the U.S. economy. Subpoint A. Key U.S. industries would be crippled by shortages of workers if not for immigrants. McCaffrey, 2011. In closing, we must also recognize that our economy is fundamentally dependent on more than 10 million illegal immigrants now in the United States. They are essential to U.S. agriculture, construction, meatpacking, and the service industry. They are currently not receiving the protection of minimum wage, OSHA safety standards, and in too many cases, the ability to keep their children in school. They cannot go to the local police if menaced by Mexican cartels. We must rationally and fairly both strictly enforce control of our borders with robust federal law enforcement, as well as providing legal guest worker status to these millions of hardworking, honest people who are central to our economic well-being. Subpoint B. Immigrant labor strengthens the U.S. economy. Subpoint 1. Immigrants compensate for gaps in the U.S. labor force. Hing, 2010. Importantly, the Cato Institution of a libertarian public policy research foundation based in Washington, D.C. has found that of the 30 job categories with the largest expected growth, more than half fall into the least skilled categories, such as combined food preparation and serving workers, including fast food, waiters and waitresses, retail sales personnel, cashiers, security guards, nursing aides, orderlies and attendants, janitors and cleaners, home health aides, manual laborers and freight, stock and material movers, landscaping and groundskeeping workers, and manual packers and packagers. But with the supply of American workers suitable for such work continuing to fall because of an aging workforce and rising education levels, Cato concludes Mexican migrants provide a ready and willing source of labor to fill the growing gap between demand and supply on the lower rungs of the labor ladder. Subpoint 2. Claims that immigrant workers would take the jobs of low-income American workers are false. Griswold, 2012. Contrary to popular notions, low-skilled immigration has not contributed to a swelling of the underclass or any increase at all, nor has it contributed to a rise in crime or any other antisocial behavior. In fact, it would be more plausible to argue that low-skilled immigration has actually accelerated the upward mobility of Americans on the lower end of the socioeconomic ladder. At the same time, the influx of low-skilled immigrants has helped transform the American underclass into a demographic group that is still poor, but more inclined to work and less prone to crime. Subpoint C. The Perry Plan uses the power of the market to optimize immigrant labor. Perry, 2013. In a study for the Hamilton Project written by Pia and Zavdoni, we propose that temporary permits to hire immigrants should be made tradable and sold by the government in auctions to the employers. Such a cap-and-trade system would ensure efficiency. The auction price of permits would signal the demand for immigrants and guide the upward and downward adjustment of the permits number over years. And with that, I'm open for cross-examination for the points of clarification.